What is up? What's up, Camelback fam? We are back with another episode of Humble and Hungry, the series where we sit down with revolutionary entrepreneurs who are changing the game in education and technology. I am your host, Lex Lindsay, Senior Associate of Marketing and Communications at Camelback, and I am so excited to have joining me today the co-founder and CEO of the Watts of Power Foundation, Dr. Peter Watts. What's up? What's up, Peter?
Hello. How are you? It's been a minute. I'm so excited to be able to talk to you today.
Yeah, it has been a minute. It's really good to see you. I think the last time we saw each other was in New Orleans at closing week. So it's good
Yeah,
to see
we're
you
in New
again.
Orleans at closing week, karaoke, all that good stuff.
Right. Having a funky good time. That's
That's right.
right. Awesome. Well, I did a quick introduction, but I would love to just kind of kick us off for folks who aren't familiar with you and the work that you're doing with the Watts of Power Foundation. If you could just quickly introduce yourself and what the Watts of Power Foundation is.
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Peter Watts Jr. I am the co-founder and CEO of the Watts of Power Foundation. We are an education nonprofit, and we have an initiative, which is our flagship program called the Village Initiative. And the Village Initiative is focused on the recruitment, retention, sustaining, and also retaining Black men to become teachers in public schools, and specifically our work is here in Los Angeles, which also includes building teacher housing that's affordable for them to live in for the duration of their residency with us. And so we are excited about the work that we do, and the impact that we're having in a city like Los Angeles.
Yes, yes. Thank you for sharing that. Super, super excited to just talk more about the work that you're doing and multiplying the 2%. So I like to start these conversations from the very beginning, taking it to the way back. And just what inspired you to pursue entrepreneurship and led to the Watts of Power Foundation and TBI.
Yeah. So I born and raised in Los Angeles, grew up all around LA. When people say that they're from LA and we ask them, what part of LA, they say some, suburban area or something, but I'm like from LA, like, USC, LA, that area. And so when I was a young kid, I was always interested in exploring new things and always tinkering around with technology back then, whatever that technology was, and just really wanted to create something new that didn't exist in the world. And so that's just always been my characteristics about who I am as a person or as a human being. And went to public school for elementary and middle school, then went to private parochial high school in the city of Watts at Bourbon Day High School, and then went on to college at Cal State Dominguez Hills and became a teacher in 1997. And back then, when I became a teacher, I started teaching in LAUSD, Los Angeles Unified School District. And even as I was teaching in 1997 in the city of Watts at Compton Avenue, as an educator, I don't think people really understand that educators are entrepreneurs. There were many times where we would get curriculum and books and lessons, and I would find myself wanting to create new lessons or things that didn't exist that weren't meeting the needs of kids in my classroom. Then in 2001, I left the traditional school district and went to the charter school world, and that's where I again began to grow and develop as a teacher and leader, and ended up becoming a founding principal of a charter school. So I started a charter school in LA next to USC called Thurgood Marshall Middle School, and that school was an entrepreneurship academy. We focused on project-based learning, as well as what we call blended learning, which is taking technology and online learning and face-to-face instruction in the same space, but also teaching entrepreneurship skills to kids in middle school at that time. And so I've just always been this person who's always wanted to see new things happen in the world. And so when I left the education space, in 2014, my wife and I started this nonprofit called the Watts of Power, and we really focused on working with foster youth and families and providing needs and material things for them as they were coming through the school system. And then right around the pandemic in 2020, when everything shut down and kids were at home and families were at home and they needed their kids to be somewhere, we wanted to do these micro schools. And so I attempted to start these small communities or hubs of micro schools for under-resourced families and communities. And what I quickly learned is that as we were getting ready to launch our first micro school, we didn't have any teachers because I was going to have to be the teacher of that micro school. And I said, I can't be the teacher of the micro school and trying to start more micro schools at the same time. And that's what really led us to understanding the gap in the Black educator pipeline, as many have called it. And so we then started looking at my experience as a Black male educator and the challenges that I had in becoming a Black male teacher. But then I have 3 kids and all of them are in education. And my wife and I have had to help them navigate the education pathway as well. And so we wanted to solve these problems. And I'm just really about solving problems in the world and creating things that don't exist. And so we ended up launching the Village Initiative, again, where we focused on the career pathways for Black men to become teachers, but also helping them build legacy and wealth through home ownership at the same time.
Yes, yes, man. So a long career in education and entrepreneurship. It sounds like entrepreneurship was a part of that journey every step of the way, which is awesome. You mentioned that, a lot of folks don't think about educators being entrepreneurs, but they are, starting
Yes.
something new. I mean, you went and founded a charter school. That's insane.
Right.
And then like even to have the drive to start these micro schools and then recognize, oh wait, there's a different piece of this puzzle that's missing, and we need to address that, to land on the work that you're leading with the Village Initiative and trying to multiply the 2% of Black male teachers in the school system.
That's
That's
right.
just awesome. That's
That's right.
awesome. So I want to talk about some of the challenges that you've faced along this journey of entrepreneurship, especially as a person of color, a Black man in the education system, and how have you overcome some of those challenges, in as an entrepreneur within the education system for folks who may be in that system and wanting to do something different and revolutionize it?
Yeah, I think we always talk about the way in which funding works for entrepreneurs, for businesses, whether they're nonprofits or for profits. Where is the capital going to come from, and who has it? How do we get access to it? And what I found over the past, I would say 3 to 4 years since we've been focused on this initiative, particularly, has been the way in which I have overcome those barriers around fund development. The skill sets that I've been able to gain through fellowships like Camelback, and resources I've been able to acquire because of the skill sets that I've been able to build over the course of these years. My background had not been in fund development, but I had been forced to be a fundraiser all the time, because when you're an entrepreneur, you're always trying to figure out ways in which to raise capital to do to fund the dreams that you have. And oftentimes it's throwing everything that would against the wall and seeing what sticks, and seeing what people are really interested in investing in. And so again, I would say looking at the way in which when we think about our country and we think about the history of our country around racism and white supremacy and just all those things, we have to acknowledge the fact that fundraising is a part of that system. And depending on how you grew up, if you grew up in poor neighborhoods and you didn't have access to capital or relationships or networks or things like that, there's a certain way that you even view money. And so one of the barriers I've had to overcome is the way in which I viewed money, and whether it was going to be there when I spent it. And so having this really changing mindsets around scarcity, and understanding that it is more than enough out there. And then also having a different perspective when it comes to fund development and making the ask of potential funders and investors, and knowing the history and how a lot of organizations gain their wealth through oppressive practices, and how a lot of these, again, foundations and endowments really got their monies throughout the years. I look at it as an opportunity to go and get back what rightfully belonged to me in the first place. And so when I step into those spaces, I don't step into those spaces cowering or timid, but I step into those spaces now boldly, knowing that what is rightfully ours as a community, we should go and get back and do the good work that we've been called to do, and using those resources to do it. So I would say that's one of the biggest challenges, again, that I faced over the course of the years in the development of our venture. But I believe that we're at a place now where I'm very confident around the fund development, because I've had coaches and resources and people around me who've been able to support me in that maturation and development.
Man, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. There was a lot of gems in there. Just talking about, like the scarcity mindset and having to shift your mindset away from that, to recognize that there is enough. Like that's hard to do personally.
Right.
So, having to do that when you have a venture, I would be curious, like if you have any tips or advice that you could share on just overcoming that mindset and making that shift.
Yeah, I think first admitting, those negative kind of phrases and language that we have used around money. So, for example, did you grow up hearing money doesn't grow on trees? Like, no, it doesn't grow on trees, but money is made out of trees, right? And so you can actually change the way that we look at how we view money. And again, that's just something really simple, but that's again a beginning stage, around that. And then secondly, really having your pitch solidified, so that when you are talking to potential funders or investors, that you actually really know what you're talking about in terms of the data and the problem that you're trying to solve, and in the way in which you're trying to solve, and how it's unique in the market or in the industry that you are in. I think those are some really great tips for those that may be listening right now. And I would lastly say, too, don't blame yourself. Because one of the things that I heard from a trusted friend of mine is that many entrepreneurs of color are overcoached and underfunded. So it's not that we need more coaching necessarily. There's some coaching that we definitely need, but most of all, we need folks to fund and invest in the ideas that we have, because they're just as good as anybody else's ideas that are out there in the market. It's just that some people have more access to capital than others.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. We know that, here at Camelback, the work that we do with the Capital Collaborative, and like, it's not a pipeline problem. And as you said, it's, we recognize that a lot of BIPOC founders, it's we provide a lot of coaching, but not a lot of capital to get the work done. And it's like, well, we need both, but we're at this point in the ecosystem where it's like, we really, really need the capital to get this work done. Stop holding the bag. Stop withholding
Right,
the bag.
right. We're trying to secure the bag, and you keep trying to move it out the way. But I would
Okay.
also say another tip that I think has been most powerful for me has been relationship building. In real estate, they say real estate is all about location, location, location. And I would say in the fund development world, in particular in the nonprofit world, it's relationship, relationship, relationship. What I found out in this journey is that the relationships that I've been able to develop over the past 26, 27 years as an educator are now coming back full circle, and those relationships are turning into capital. Whether it's somebody that's directly working in an organization or foundation or industry that has the position to pull the lever to give funding, or whether or not they're in a position to make a connection or an introduction to a foundation that doesn't accept unsolicited offers, where they make an email introduction. I want to introduce you to Dr. Watson, this amazing work that he's doing. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, great, we've heard about this. Yeah, we'd like to hear more. It's like, you heard about it. Why didn't you reach out to us? Right. And so they were waiting for somebody to validate the work to make the introduction. And so it's been these relationships that have been just like miracles sometimes, and just wild connections from back in the day when I first started teaching to something as late as, yesterday, where these connections are happening, where opportunities are opening up.
Yeah, no, I love that too. It's about more than just like the money capital, but social capital, and how far that can take you in growing your venture, building relationships with folks who can connect you. And for all the funders out there, folks, like if you don't, if just a call to action, if you will, of maybe you won't fund, or it's not, not a fit for your portfolio, but it goes a long way to help connect people to the folks who could, be interested in funding some of these ventures. And so definitely want to make that call out too. It's like, it's not all about just securing money from one person. If they can connect you to somebody, that is just as powerful, and just building those networks.
Absolutely. And I have a real example of that, where I was part of another fellowship right before I got into Camelback. And in that fellowship, we were introduced to program officers. And so I was introduced to a program officer of a foundation that was giving funding to education nonprofits. And I met with this person, built relationships with this person and connections. And the foundation was making a shift in their priorities and what they would be funding. And so by the time that we were prepared to ask for funding, they had already shifted their priorities. But because the relationship was there with the program officer, she said, let me make a recommendation to this organization for you to join this organization. And once you're part of this organization, you can apply for funding. And so she made the recommendation. We became members of the organization, and we were able to apply for funding, and we got funding from this organization that she made the recommendation for. And so again, a lot of times it may not be that person that you are trying to build relationships with that's going to give you funding, but they may connect you to someone who can.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about your fellowship experience. You are a 2023 Camelback Fellow, just freshly out of the fellowship program.
Yes.
And I would love for you to share with some folks who may be interested in applying or considering applying to the Camelback Fellowship. Just how has your fellowship experience helped you grow as a leader, but also contributed to the growth of your venture?
Yes, Camelback, that 10 and a half weeks that we were together, the welcome week in Colorado, the closing week in New Orleans, but then the in-between times that we would meet on Zoom, it was everything that I needed at the time that I needed it. And what I mean by that is, part of what Camelback brings to the table is curriculum. And so you go through different modules with Camelback around funding and marketing and pitch, just all of which to get you prepared for your pitch at the end. And so it never failed. Whatever it was that we were talking about that week in Camelback was something that I needed, because I was getting ready to have a meeting with someone that had to do with that particular issue. And so, for example, when we were talking about HR 101, I was just at that point where I was going to make my first hire, and deciding whether that hire was going to be remote or in person. And I was challenged whether I should do in person or remote. And I was able to talk with my fellow Camelback colleagues, as well as the staff at Camelback, to really think through what would be my priorities around hiring and why I would want somebody remote or to be in person. So it was just being able to have those conversations with people who had the experience, or who were going through those same things at the same time, has been helpful. When I finished with the Camelback Fellowship and close out, and we did our pitches and completed our pitch decks, that next week I was back in New Orleans, getting ready to do a pitch for funding, and I used my Camelback pitch deck for that pitch and won $100,000. And so it was very, very important for me, and with the experience that I had in Camelback, that really helped me get to the next stage and next level in my venture. And then lastly, I would say the way in which Camelback staff challenged me to confront things that were happening in my venture, or the way in which I was interacting with people, to not, I wouldn't say cower or be passive, but it really was to address the issues that I was having in the room and to be bold with those things, and just really being pushed by Danielle in that way was just really helpful. So shout out to Danielle if she's watching. Keep pushing your ventures fellows to do the things that they really don't want to do. So yeah.
Oh man, I love to hear that. I didn't know that you were pitching after closing week and secured $100,000 using that pitch. Like, that makes me so happy to hear.
Yes,
That makes me so
indeed.
happy to hear that.
Yes,
Just,
indeed.
all of like the curriculum and everything was just it was just useful and timely, in helping you grow as a venture. So thank you for sharing those stories. And I'm sure that Danielle will be happy to hear that, the soft but needed pushes were helpful to, help you grow as a leader. So that's great to hear. Thank you for sharing those.
Absolutely.
Um, Now I want to talk about legacy. How we've talked about, like where you started, the work that you're doing now. And then I want to look to the future a little bit and see, how do you hope that the work you're doing with the Village Initiative transforms the education system in LA and beyond?
Yeah, I get this question a lot, and I've thought about it as well. So again, our our initiative focuses on the recruitment, retention, sustaining of Black men to become teachers in public schools. And we do that through a 2-year residency program in partnership with Cal State Dominguez Hills and Los Angeles Unified School District, as well as some other charter management organizations in LA as well. But we also provide housing that's affordable in the neighborhoods where these young men teach. And so we currently have 15 young men in our program who are all on the pathway to becoming teachers. Some are in classrooms right now as teachers, and some are on the pathway to becoming teachers. We just are in the process of building new housing. We have 5 that live in housing currently, and we are in the process of building new housing. In April, we break ground on the new housing that we're building, and so we're excited about that. So by fall of 2025, we'll be housing about 10 fellows at a time who are living in housing. And once they're done with our program, our hope as we are preparing them to become teachers, we're also preparing them to become homeowners. And so they go through our curriculum, our program in training, which my wife developed, which is called the training in the components of care and what it looks like to care for kids in the classroom, and how does care as an educator translates into student achievement, translate into longevity in the profession. But then we also do training in financial literacy and home buying. And so when they finish with our program, they'll be debt-free or a reduction in debt, because you don't go into debt when you get your credential through us, and then savings, and then knowledgeable about the home buying process. And so over the next 10 to 20 years, we have a goal of credentialing about 120 Black men who become fully credentialed, highly effective public school teachers in LA, and on the pathway to home ownership. So at the end of the day, the legacy that I want to leave is the same legacy I'm leaving for my own family and my own kids, who are now educators and homeowners. Some of them are homeowners in LA. We want to be able to do the same thing for other young people who are coming up through the system, the same thing that we were able to do for our own kids and family. And so when I leave this earth, I would just love for people to say it was because of the work that started right here in LA with the Watts of Power Foundation and their Village initiative that we have whole, healed, Black men in LA who are career educators in our schools, who are making an impact on student achievement, and who are building legacy through home ownership by buying back the neighborhood where they possibly grew up.
Man, that is beautiful. And I love that it's not just about increasing the number of Black male educators in the school system. It's this holistic view of helping them create generational wealth, healing, traumas, and just like the mindset around money, and creating finance, or facilitating financial education, like really, of course, focusing on the work that it is that you're doing in the school, but how can it's impacting legacy beyond just like
Yes.
your immediate legacy with these teachers. That's, when you go in and help these guys out, it's going to impact their legacy and 7 generations down the line. And like
Absolutely.
how powerful will that be? When we
Yeah.
look 20, 30, 40 years down the line, how many more Black men are we going to see in the classrooms, and Black men who are owners of homes in LA, especially a place that's like so crazy expensive.
Right.
It's
Right.
beautiful.
And really it's about dispelling the myth that you can't do it on a teacher's salary. I believe that teachers need to be paid more, absolutely, but I also know that there are some things that can happen as an educator where things can go your way, and the way in which you can again be a career educator and a homeowner, while being again on a teacher salary, while being an educator. It is possible in a city like Los Angeles, and we're just here to prove that, because if we can do it in LA, we can do it anywhere.
Man, say it again, say it again. Awesome. Well, as we kind of wrap up here, I want to talk about, what's up for the Teacher Village and Watts of Power Foundation this year and beyond. What do you guys have coming up?
Yeah, I think the one of the biggest exciting things is us getting to what we call phase 3 in the development process of teacher housing, and so we've been able to raise enough capital to get permits to build from the city of LA. So all of those soft costs, which was about almost $300,000 in soft costs to get to that point, we were able to get to the point to get shovels in the ground to build, and so our big celebration day we're looking at will be April of 2024, where we'll have a big ceremony with shovels in the ground saying we have been cleared to build, and hopefully by fall of 2025 we will have new housing for our teacher fellows. And then secondly, we are launching a podcast this year, and so we really look at our work as research. And so in February I'll be in Atlanta doing a presentation at Georgia State University, where our teacher initiative will be placed in a scholarly peer-reviewed journal as well. And so we want to be able to take that research through this podcast and let the research come from the teacher voices themselves. So a lot of times research is always done about Black men, but it's never from their perspective, from their voice. And so this podcast, which we are going to be calling Multiply the 2% podcast, it's really focused on Black men's experiences in the education profession. And so we'll have our teacher fellows talking. We'll have guests from different schools and districts and organizations, and just everything that impacts the educator, the Black male educator in the public education space is what our podcast will be about. So when funders are listening, when policymakers are listening, they can have insight on how to make it easier for Black men to become teachers.
Oh yeah. Oh, some big things in the works, some big things in the works. Well, Peter, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your insight on fundraising, for sharing more about what you're doing with the Watts of Power Foundation. And just, being an all around awesome man. Awesome,
Thank
awesome
you.
man.
Thank you
We
so
really
much for
appreciate the knowledge.
Yeah, thank you so much for the invite, and I'm excited to share that you guys will be sharing this with the world. And again, I'm so appreciative to Camelback and the Camelback fam for accepting me into Camelback. For those that are listening that may be thinking about applying, listen, it was my third try in Camel. I tried the first year, and then the second year it was denied. It was not. It wasn't the right time, but this time was the right time. And And I'm so glad of the people that I was accepted with in our cohort. And yeah, it was a great experience.
Absolutely. Well, we're absolutely proud to have you as part of the Camelback fam, and just excited to see the continued work and success that you're having with the Teacher Village. And just to be a part of the journey. Glad that we
Thank
could
you.
support you. Before we head out, I just want to ask, if folks want to connect with you to learn more about the work that you're doing with the Watts of Power Foundation, if they want to participate, fund, help you guys fundraise, or just support the work that it is that you're doing, or connect with you about entrepreneurship, how can people connect and learn more?
Yep, you can go to our website, which is wattsofpowerfoundation.org. My last name, WATTS, wattsofpowerfoundation.org. There is plenty of information on our website and ways to get connected to us. If you personally want to reach out to me, you can go to my website at peterwattsjr.com and learn more about me and my work personally. But those are the two ways. You can follow us on social media. Our social media handle on Instagram and X, as it's now called, right? And Facebook, it's Watts underscore of power. Watts underscore of power. So follow us on socials and reach out to us.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you again, Peter, so much for joining us today and just sharing your wealth of knowledge and expertise and encouragement for those who are out there, considering jumping into entrepreneurship if you're an educator, or just wanting to apply to the fellowship. We would love to have you, would love to see your application. And we'll be back here next month with a new conversation. But until then, everyone be well, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Peace.